Good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see everyone. I know this is our first back to in-person conference. In fact, a ton of the Decode board members were just getting together and we were saying how this is the first time we've all met in person, despite all the Zoom sessions that we've done for the past couple of years. So this is super exciting to see it all finally come together. And Esther, welcome back on campus at Berkeley.
And so you should know that I was here in the 1960s. So I was a graduate and undergraduate. And campus was a little bit on the wild side, I should tell you. So we're very excited to be here, really excited to be back here. And the student center that you're all sitting in now, they taxed all the students in the 1960s to pay for this. So I'm really happy to see my tax dollars. I can see it happening, yes.
Correct. So it's a perfect location to be sitting in. I mean, you can see our Berkeley landmark, the Campanile in the background. This is obviously the Student Senate Chamber, so a wonderful place to talk about the intersection of education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So thank you so much for coming back, Esther. Really excited to chat more specifically about opportunities in education, but maybe we start more with your story. You started sharing with us how you were on campus here in the 1960s. Tell us a bit more about what those days were like and what education was like back in those days in the midst of the free speech movement.
So well, first of all, I started majoring in zoology, and that was kind of crazy. I don't know why I picked that. But the competition was so fierce, it was incredible. Nobody could share with anybody because they were all pre-meds, and they all wanted to beat you. And so I realized, after 1 year in that major, that I wasn't going to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a doctor anymore after all that. So I switched to physiology. I don't know why I thought that was any better, but it wasn't. So anyway, after that, I decided even physiology wasn't going to work. So I switched to again, and then I double majored in English literature and political science. And I did philosophy of political science. So that gave me an entree into being able to teach. But I can tell you that the campus was really kind of on fire at that time. I majored in protesting. I had a little picket and I would go out to segregate every day. And since I was majoring in political science, it was like, oh, I'm doing my homework. And it was pretty exciting. But the main thing that we were focused on at that point was that students weren't getting any support. Undergraduate students were really, it was crazy. My classes had 800 people in it, 800. And then I was a scholarship student and I had to get a recommendation every year. And I'd have to go to these professors who I saw way in the distance. It's like, I'm in your class. And, I honestly am there. And then can you write me a rec so I can continue with my scholarship the following year? So I protested that it was really terrible. There was no support at all for students, absolutely zero. And then somehow I made it through anyway. I lived in the co-op dorms. And those were very helpful because I was together with other students, and I lived at Sherman Hall, which is right next to the stadium. It was a smaller dorm. And I realized when I went to graduate school, I'd done a graduate degree in journalism, graduate school of journalism. My classes in journalism as a graduate student had like 8 people in it. 8 people. It's like, I don't need your help now. I needed it back when I was a freshman and a sophomore. I don't need you to tell me what to do, a class of 8 people. So that was actually the beginning of my protest for how education was organized. And I went to school in Los Angeles at a public high school. It was called, anyway, it's in Tahunga, California. It's called Verdugo Hills High School. I'm sure you've never heard of it. But that was also very, the education wasn't very good there either. I had a lot of problems. Although I ended up, I don't know how, this was kind of an accident. I think they probably didn't know what they were doing. But I ended up as valedictorian of this class of 800 students. And I just remember being totally shocked by this experience. The main thing that shocked me is I had to give the graduation speech. You know, how it's like, oh no, I don't know how I'm gonna do that. That was not exactly, it was intimidating. But, so what I thought needed to happen in the public schools, and it's still today the problem, is that kids are constantly being told what to do. It's totally top down. The teacher's in charge, the teacher tells you to memorize something, you have to memorize it because if you don't, you're gonna get a bad grade on the test, and then you won't be able to move forward. So the question is, where are kids learning how to do what I call the 4 C's? Communicate with each other, be creative, think critically, and collaborate. How can they do those 4 things? Well, after you graduate from a high school, here in, I don't know, anywhere in the United States, you can't do any of that. You're not supposed to talk to anybody, you're supposed to sit there quietly and do your work. And if you talk, well, it's called cheating. You know? So it was kind of a problem. Yeah. This one better?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So it was a problem, you know, for me as a student. I mean, somehow I made it through. So my mother was born in Siberia, my father was born in the Ukraine. Neither one of them had a high school diploma. So I was the first one to go to college in my family, and I didn't know how to do it. Luckily, you know, it was by accident I got into Berkeley. I got a scholarship. But I think there's a lot of kids today in, you know, immigrant communities that are facing the same problem. I'm actually going to work with a young man from Mexico tomorrow who suffered all this discrimination because of the fact that he was from Mexico. Really, it's crazy. And I'm going to help him. But so I started as a teacher in the middle of the 60s after I got my degree. And I did not teach the way the other teachers were teaching. I switched it around. I gave kids more control in the classroom. This was in the 1962, 1963. Your parents probably weren't even born. But I got into a lot of trouble, terrible trouble. You know, the first year I was there, they had to have me because I taught 5 subjects, and there were 5 different subjects that they couldn't get a teacher for. It was like business math, algebra 2, senior English, and yearbook. I mean, I was like, I did everything, and I didn't even mind it. It was fun. But I gave my students a lot of control, and that gave me problems with the administration. So that's just going back to the 60s. Then I started again teaching in 1984 at Palo Alto High School, in the heart of Silicon Valley. And of course, I had to do exactly what they told me at the beginning. They gave me a textbook. I was teaching, again, multiple subjects, journalism, social studies. I didn't teach math that time, and English. And they told me that all kids have to sit in a row, and they all have to listen to the teacher. That's how you're evaluated. If you don't know that, that's how teachers are evaluated. That somebody comes into your classroom and they watch. They look around and it's like, is every single kid listening to you? And you know, if they're not, if they for some reason seem to be daydreaming, you, the teacher, get in trouble. So it's crazy. Anyway, after about 6 months of this ridiculous program, I switched it around. And I moved it to a collaborative basis, peer-to-peer collaboration, and then this was in the journalism program and the English program. Again, I got into terrible trouble. I didn't have tenure, so what am I going to do? So I confessed to my students that I was going to be fired in 2 weeks, because that's what they told me. I said, if the next time these administrators come in to watch, I don't want you to make a sound. Don't talk. Just sit there and look like I'm like the most exciting person you've ever met. And you know what? It was crazy. They all thought it was great. And it worked like a charm, you can't believe. And the administration came in and they're like, what'd you do to the kids? You don't think I was going to tell them, do you? No, didn't say a word. Anyway, I got tenure. So, thank God. And so then I went about changing the way I was teaching. I gave kids a lot of control in this journalism program. The program started with 20 kids. Then the following year, I guess the kids talked to each other and they're like, you better take this class. And so the next year I had 30 kids in the program. To make a long story really short, I have today is the largest media program in the United States. I have over 800 kids taking journalism, all because of what I did, which was give those kids control. They controlled the publication, they controlled everything. I basically taught them the skills, and it was by doing for the most part. And so what I'm trying to do, actually in all programs, is to give kids more control. And at least 20% of the time. I'm afraid you'll never change the whole system at once, ever. So I'm just saying, how about just giving kids some control and let them come up with ideas of their own so that they can learn to be critical thinkers, they can learn to collaborate, they can learn to work independently. And so that's what excited me about what's going on here. This is all organized by students. You learn by doing. You learn to ride a bike by doing it. How would it be if you had to read a book about it, right? Then do it. Or skateboard, or ski, or any of those things. Or, collaboration, that's the name of the game in the whole world today. And multiple minds are more powerful than one mind. You do a lot of things together. So I've been on a bandwagon to do this, as Shuo knows. And I wrote a book. It's called How to Raise Successful People, Simple Lessons for Radical Results. And it became a bestseller in the United States. Then it became a bestseller worldwide. It's now in 28 languages. It sold more than 1 million copies in China. I thought that was particularly interesting because Chinese education is just the opposite of what I propose. So maybe it'll have an impact, who knows? It's coming out next month, or actually this month, it's November already, right? It's coming out this month in Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai. So in the Arabic language. And all over the world. I was just talking to this young woman who helped me find my parking spot. There she is, from Germany, who told me in Germany there is no control. Students have none. You have to memorize all the time. The whole curriculum is looking backward. It's same in Italy, same in France. It's all over the world. By the year 2030, more than 50% of the jobs are going to be jobs we don't even know about. How are kids supposed to think about that? In Italy, can you imagine all the Italian kids? I don't know if there's any Italian kids in here. They have to learn the Italian school system. I spoke at the University of Bologna this summer. Kids in Italy all have to learn Latin and Greek. They have to be able to read and write in Latin and Greek. And I was like, what about cybersecurity, you guys? How about something exciting that's happening now? Nobody does cybersecurity. We don't worry about that. Pizza, whatever. So the idea, how are we going to get there? So that's basically what I'm trying to do. So I have a lot of very famous students that came out of my program, and it's because they credit it that I gave them the opportunity to think independently. They learn to believe in themselves by doing. And some of them, I have 3 students that were actually at the leadership team of Alibaba. So they're all over the world. And so my daughters, I don't know, you didn't talk about my daughters. I don't know, how many of you guys know what my daughters do? 1 person, 3, no, 5. So my daughters, they had this training program. They were like little guinea pigs. I tried it all out on them. It's like, it seems to work. I'll try it on my students. So my oldest daughter, Susan, is the CEO of YouTube. My second daughter, Janet, is professor of pediatrics at UCSF Medical Center. And my third daughter, Anne, is the founder and CEO of 23andMe. You ever hear of 23andMe? Yeah. So she's succeeding. She tries to change the way we see healthcare. And so that you are in charge of your own destiny within healthcare. When my children were growing up, all the doctors did the same thing. You went in to see the doctor and you couldn't get you didn't know what he wrote in your chart. It was impossible to find out. And this was, I was a member of Kaiser, which is actually forward thinking. I wanted to know, like, what did you write in there? They're like, don't worry, just take this pill. I was like, but I want to know. Anyway, by the way, now I can tell you, you as an individual have the right to your own medical information. And you know what they write about, and you can get that. And I don't know if you know what a huge battle that was. The doctors did not want you to get that information. They wanted to just write it in there, and then it was from one doctor to another. So I'll confess something here. Nobody's part of the press, I hope. So I wanted to know what is in my medical record and that of my daughters and whatever. So in order to find that out, I had to steal my own chart. And I did. So sorry. Anyway.
That's all the time we have. Thank you.
I'm going to get it right now. So anyway, I'm trying to put, students in charge of their own lives. The talk I gave last week in Mexico was you as CEO of your own life, and giving you opportunities to think about yourself, take the courses you want, collaborate with your peers, and be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are making a huge difference in the world today. And that's why I'm here. I'm trying to help and support you, and I have to thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Esther, for coming back in and for all the work that you do. And also a little bit more, if I could relate it back to Berkeley as well, you've also been doing incredible work here on campus.
Right.
So Esther has been involved with the SCT, the Sutarto Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology, where our classes fall under. Esther has come in and taught for a number of my classes, mentored a number of my students who are starting startups. In fact, I think there are students in here who have also been mentored by Esther, who have gotten advice on pitching, how to put their startups together. So thank you for all the work that you do, not just kind of in a scalable platform-like way, but also individual and personalized for all the individual students that are in class. So really appreciate your work.
I find it very exciting to work with all of them, and very exciting to work with all of you. I personally think that there's so much potential and curiosity and excitement working with young people. I loved being a teacher. So, a lot of people, they run out the door at 3 o'clock. So my classes, that was one of the problems actually, is that my students never wanted to leave. So they would be there till 10 o'clock at night, I'm not kidding. And so I was like, I have to go home and go to sleep. And they bought me a beanbag. Anyway, it was a battle, constant. But it's because they were there with each other. They had a great opportunity to be together. We supplied food, of course. So it worked.
I love that. I'm seeing Arushi and Sarah, who have been advised and mentored by Esther, and Sarah was in my class last semester as well, where Esther spoke and was tremendously helpful, so really appreciate that. I was looking for you guys when I was talking earlier. Esther, I want to ask you kind of one more question. I want to make sure we leave enough time for roundtables, where I know you'll all have a chance to meet Esther in a smaller group setting and ask questions. Really, the question I wanted to ask you is, as we're starting to think about how quickly, as you were talking about, the future of work and jobs are evolving so quickly and people needed to take control more in the classroom, Number one, advice for students. How can they do a better job of influencing change bottoms up? And then two, advice for folks who are in leadership, recruiting, CEO, and faculty roles. How can we do a better job of encouraging and hearing more feedback from students?
So I think one thing that we could do, hopefully that was intentional. You know, I think one of the things that they can do when, should we start with students? One of the philosophies that worked in my program, and it worked in math and all the subjects I did, is that if you don't do well on something right away, you get a chance to redo it. So my program was based on revision. No one was perfect. And I used to tell my students, because writing was something people used to get writer's block. And the writer's block disappears completely when they don't have to worry about the grade. But I also did the same thing, it sounds crazy, in math. Because I had the kids working together peer to peer. Some kids didn't understand it, other kids understood it really quickly, and they would help each other. And so my students who were doing it, I'd only taught algebra 1 and 2, they would test the top of the school. And I wasn't an algebra teacher, right? I was just teaching algebra because I was assigned to that. So one thing I would like to see is, you know, more opportunity for revision. Because it's so stressful to, you know, you have that one test at the end, and it's like, oh my God, that's it. You can have like a headache then, or whatever. So that, I think that would make a difference, a big difference. And okay, maybe you don't have to do it all the time, but you know, stop having those tests that count 100% of the time.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely the case in entrepreneurship as well, normalizing failure and giving students the opportunities to try multiple times. So I think, Esther, you'll be excited to hear that students have the chance to choose the best score out of 4 attempts in my class this semester. So
that's great.
That
no, I think that makes a big difference, because there's nothing more discouraging to a student in getting a bad grade and realizing that that one test is going to influence everything. And then they're like, I don't want to go on anymore. It's really hard.
Absolutely. And I think it also speaks to Rich's session earlier about the importance of entrepreneurship education as well, and helping students be more entrepreneurial in terms of how they approach their classes. It applies not just to their future careers, but to how they learn as a student now on campus as well, in terms of speaking to faculty members, to professors, and speaking up about what that looks like and how they want that better integrated into their curriculum.
I think that it would be great if there could be more collaboration, you know, between the faculty member and the students. And if you could open, the faculty member is the one that has to open the door. And so let's see if they could do that. And, you know, I've had some of my students, I should just tell you that you as a teacher, you cannot predict that one student is going to be like super famous or do amazing things, because I think everybody has within them this power to be whoever they want to be, if they feel that, if they trust themselves and believe in themselves. And so that's the main thing that I tried to work on in my classes, is give students the ability to believe in themselves and to forgive themselves when they made a mistake. Because we all make mistakes, and most people, a person that suffers the most is you. You don't forgive yourself for whatever mistake it is that you made, and you get mad, and you create all kinds of issues. So that's what I think is really important, and it'd be good if the professors at Berkeley would give kids more of an opportunity to recover if somehow or other they didn't do well in some test or something.
Absolutely, in the works. And I think today is a great way to kind of attest to all the great work of students, right? This is absolutely all put together by students. So if the light occasionally goes off, that's okay. A mistake is fine as well. And Esther, one last question for you before we we give the time back to our MC today, is really, as you look forward on opportunities for Moonshots in education, particularly for the budding entrepreneurs in the room, are there specific opportunities that you're particularly excited about? Whether it's a specific area, a software tool, or even a platform opportunity, something that you think is a great area, at least for students to explore as opportunities to build in.
So the accelerator here, what is it? Skydeck. It'd be great for that to be open to all students. You learn so much through the accelerators. And even if you don't go on to found the company that you thought you were going to do, you learn so many skills. So I would like to see more students have that opportunity. And I don't know if it costs anything. Does Skydeck cost something for students, or it's free? Okay, so then I think I would encourage everybody to do that. I think most of you, since you're here at Berkeley, you are really good students, or you probably would be here, and you're used to getting everything right. Sometimes you don't get it right. And the other thing that I guess I should talk about was Google. I'm connected to Google because Google started in my daughter's garage. And so I knew, and I still know, Sergey and Larry very well. And I saw the kinds of things that went on at the beginning of Google. And I can tell you, they did not get it all right to start. So, don't give up. Persistence is really the key to everything. And so, yeah, it was my daughter who was hired by Google at the very beginning, after they started in her garage, and her number one job was figure out how Google can make money. They said all they know how to do is find things with an algorithm, and that was it. But they didn't have a clue how to make money. So you see, it's a team effort everywhere, and you need to don't give up. Just shift what you're doing to see whether you can't make it work.
It's an incredible note to end on, and I'm really excited to see all the startups and ideas that everyone in the audience is working on and will be working on in the future. So with that, a huge thank you to Esther, and we look forward to the roundtable with you as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.